A revolution begins with hope, but hope never survives unchanged. What happens when fighters for justice become hunted fugitives in their own country? And what happens when the next generation is forced to pay for wars they never chose? The birth of a broken revolution. The story of one battle after another begins with a radical revolutionary group known as the French 75, a modern reinterpretation of 1960s counterculture activism. At the center of this group is Bob Ferguson, formerly Yeto Patpati, and his partner Perfidia Beverly Hills alongside the collapse of idealism. The film draws inspiration from real historical movements of the 1960s and 1970s, especially anti-war and civil rights activism that fractured under pressure from state surveillance, internal betrayal, and violent suppression. Just like those movements, the French 75 begins to fall apart. Members scatter. Trust breaks. Ideology weakens under pressure. Revolution is not destroyed in battle, it is destroyed in exhaustion. As government forces tighten control, the activists are forced into hiding, shifting from public rebellion to survival mode. What once felt like a mission for justice becomes a desperate attempt to stay alive. This collapse sets the foundation for the central theme of the film. Every revolution eventually becomes a memory carried by those who survive it. Perfidia and Lockjaw, the dangerous connection. One of the most complex threads in the story is the relationship between Perfidia and Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, a high-ranking military officer assigned to track the French 75. At first, their interaction is purely hostile. She humiliates him during a raid, using dominance and psychological control. But something unexpected happens. Power turns into obsession. Lockjaw begins watching her, studying her, becoming fixated on her presence. Perfidia, meanwhile, plays with control and danger, never fully revealing whether she fears him or manipulates him. Their relationship becomes a psychological battlefield. At one point, Lockjaw allows her to escape in exchange for a sexual encounter, blurring the line between power, fear, and attraction. This is not romance, it is dominance disguised as desire. Actress Teyana Taylor describes it as toxic energy on both sides. Two people who understand each other's darkness but cannot trust each other. Lockjaw is not simply attracted to Perfidia. He is obsessed with what she represents, rebellion, power, and freedom he can never access. And Perfidia is not simply a revolutionary. She is unpredictable, unstable, and driven by conflicting emotional impulses. Their connection becomes symbolic of something larger. The attraction between control and chaos. Inherited consequence. The heart of the story. The core theme of the film is inherited consequence. The idea that the actions of one generation shape the suffering of the next. Perfidia eventually becomes pregnant and gives birth to Willa, a child born directly into political chaos, fear, and instability. But instead of safety, Willa inherits. This act shatters Bob emotionally and fractures the revolution completely. The revolution didn't die in battle, it died in betrayal. Bob Ferguson. Paranoia, isolation, addiction, emotional exhaustion. He is no longer a fighter, he is a survivor. But survival comes at a cost. Willa grows up without stability, constantly aware that something about her life is wrong but never fully understanding what. Bob tries to protect her, but his instability creates emotional distance between them. Their relationship becomes strained, love mixed with resentment, protection mixed with failure. Willa, the next generation. Willa represents innocence shaped by inherited trauma. She is intelligent, independent, and skeptical of her father's secrecy. But she also carries emotional scars. Resentment toward Bob. Confusion about her identity. Pressure to mature too quickly. She becomes both child and caretaker in her household. She grows up too fast because the world forces her to. Despite everything, she still seeks structure and guidance, which she finds in Sensei Sergio. Sensei Sergio, order in chaos. Sensei Sergio becomes a stabilizing force in Willa's life. He provides not just training but emotional grounding, offering her something Bob cannot: clarity. He also helps Bob indirectly, introducing him to a network of trusted individuals who support displaced families and hidden activists. Actor Benicio del Toro describes him as a man who believes in community survival over individual ego. Even in chaos, he builds belonging. Sergio represents the opposite of revolution, not destruction, but reconstruction. The irony of prejudice, Lockjaw's fall. Colonel Lockjaw represents one of the most ironic character arcs in the film. While he enforces systems of control and prejudice, he is deeply obsessed with belonging. He attempts to join an extremist group known as the Christmas Adventurers Club, a white supremacist organization built on contradictory ideology. Irony defines everything about them. Named after a holiday symbolizing peace, built on hate instead of unity, claiming superiority while fearing exclusion. Lockjaw desperately wants acceptance from them despite being emotionally isolated and internally conflicted. He even shows contradictory admiration for Perfidia, a woman he is supposed to hate but cannot stop obsessing over. He enforces exclusion while desperately seeking inclusion. His character exposes the hypocrisy of prejudice. It is never about strength, but about insecurity. The Christmas Adventurers Club, symbol of extremism. Their ideology claims purity but relies on fear. Their identity claims superiority but depends on control. Even Lockjaw, who seeks validation through them, becomes trapped in their hollow structure. They promise belonging but deliver emptiness. The final chain, how the past returns. As Willa grows older, the past begins catching up to her. Bob's hidden history, Perfidia's betrayal, and Lockjaw's obsession all converge toward one inevitable truth. No one escapes consequence. Perfidia's letter, the emotional core. One of the most powerful emotional moments is Perfidia's letter to Willa. In it, she reveals vulnerability for the first time. Her fear, her regret, her inner conflict, her hope for Willa's future. She does not ask for forgiveness. She asks for continuation, but not repetition. Don't repeat my battle, rewrite it. This letter becomes the emotional bridge between past and future. The ending, breaking the cycle. In the final moments of one battle after another, Willa chooses a path different from both her parents. She does not continue the revolution. She does not embrace violence. Instead, she steps into a new identity shaped by awareness, not trauma. Bob begins to understand that survival is not enough. He must let go. Lockjaw's obsession collapses under its own contradictions, and Perfidia's legacy transforms rather than repeats. The cycle does not end with destruction, it ends with choice. Willa becomes a symbol of generational healing, carrying fragments of all influences but defining her own direction. One battle after another is not just a story about revolution. It is a story about inherited trauma, political obsession, generational conflict, and the fragile hope of breaking cycles. It shows that wars are never truly fought by one generation alone. They echo forward until someone finally decides to stop repeating them. And that is the full explanation of One Battle After Another, a brutal, emotional, and deeply political story about revolution, consequence, and the cost of inherited conflict. If you enjoyed this detailed movie breakdown, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep recap and explanation. And don't forget to watch more movie recaps and explanations with us for more powerful and mind-blowing stories like this. See you in the next video.